Hi. Uh, we're going to go through a presentation we put together about dreams, and I don't know if you, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory first of who we are. I'm Kareem Ettouney, the art director of Media Molecule, and we basically made Little Big Planet. When we first started Media Molecule, our mission was to do create what we called the creative gaming. And in Little Big Planet, it was a project about disarming the players and bringing them back to a nostalgic place of childhood and sort of unrestrained creativity, the handmade aspect of Little Big Planet was almost part of its ethos. It had a physical metaphor. The mechanics of the creation were very physical, and the aesthetics of it as well. And people blew our mind. We never really knew what to expect when we first started Little Big Planet. We released a game that we made as Media Molecule using Little Big Planet, and also released the tools and the publishing, sharing forum for it. But millions and millions of levels later, we saw that it was, and that was before YouTube, before, there was only MySpace at the time in terms of user-generated content. And for the PlayStation and for us, it started our journey. We never really expected that people would subvert the tools and use them in crazy ways. Like in the very first generation of the beta of Little Big Planet 1, and we had people using the electronics to make their own computers and their own calculators in this case. So now, many years later, after doing Tearaway, a few versions of Tearaway, which also has our playful and our creative aesthetic in the paper world and the user personalization, we decided to do Dreams. Dreams is the evolution of Little Big Planet, yet it's so much deeper in every way. We wanted to improve the entry points and make it more disarming and more appealing, but also wanted to go much deeper in capturing people's absolute unrestrained uniqueness. The problem I personally had was why make that project. I am an artist and I'm working in technology, and we already did Little Big Planet. Was a great story, and there was a whole IP, a whole brand of software that came out of it. I really didn't feel that there was enough motivation for me personally to embark on something like that again, especially that CG looked like that. There was not really lacking in excellence in computer graphics and the realistic rendering and the storytelling, the cinematography. On the left side, you see movies like Black Panther. On the right side, you see video games. Like they almost match the film in terms of that style of rendering. Even the stylized end of the spectrum is very refined, very beautiful. The animation, everything is really wonderful. So there isn't a lacking in magnificent CG. But the CG tools, however, looked like that. They are the first thing that one was looking at. What is the tools of our generation? How do they look like? How do they feel? Actually, when we put these slides together, these are just random screen grabs from the off-the-shelf modeling packages or animation packages. And they aren't as, it's meant to feel complex. These programs actually are not complex at all. These programs is what I would call simple. They just even in how they're displayed. Every single function, if you ask someone, what does this do? They will tell you, well, this welds the vertices to the next one. What's that number? That number is the threshold in which it welds, and stuff like that. Okay, I get. The problem is that there is a million of those concepts just evenly displayed on a big wall, and meaning is very hard to because, and the magicians of that sort of stuff are the people who are able to sequence it in a certain way that then results into something that we consider expressive. But the act itself of watching someone use these tools is not the same like watching a dancer or watching a musician. So I needed inspirations to and this is a small personal bit of why I personally wanted or embarked on working on Dream. This is a small, it's a place in Egypt. I'm from Egypt, and this is a place there called Wisawasif Tapestries. It's a very cool experiment. A guy in the 50s or 40s built this sanctuary in the countrysides of Egypt, took very, very poor young farmer kids and basically taught them how to do tapestries. Not in a sort of like touristic commercial way where they do the camels and sell them to the tourists. No, it's basically they taught them the art form, and the catch was that they left them for years and years to hone their craft. And the only inspiration they had was the nature around the area. So it was nature, medium, express, and nothing else. The interesting thing is that because they cocooned them for a while in that form, the art that was coming out of those young farmer kids and peasants was very, very complex, and the stylizations was very interesting. And the guy who put the whole thing together was starting to sell them for big money and sharing 50-50 the prices with the artists. And he got them all to sign their names in the pieces. The moral of the story, and the artwork looks like stuff that was happening in Europe in the time, like modern art. A little bit before that, there was Gauguin and the Fauvist. And it's not that different, really. In one generation. So that really seeded the concept of art is inside people already, and it takes only one generation to come out and match what takes hundreds of years. And then in the same year, I went to the Bauhaus Museum, and I read this concept there. And the gist of it, or what I interpreted from it, is that there is a constant need to find new ways of assembly in order to channel or to establish a relation between the present time and tradition. I loved that. This was the reason I worked on Dream, because I felt like, yeah, it's our duty to keep trying to find new ways of assembly, only to tell the same stories again, only to observe the same things again. It's not as if we love other things or we care about other things. We're still the same. We still eat. But we have that duty to find new ways of assembly. And then this is the third thing. All happened in that same month. The Egyptian, the Bauhaus, and then we went to Rome only for a day, and I went to Sistine. I love the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo is like one of my greats. And what I like about this is the colossal achievement of one human being. This is him drawing himself, drawing the ceiling. And what I like about that is that this shows the multiplier of obsessiveness. Like, the medium of fresco was already obsolete then. It wasn't even cutting edge at that time. Oil painting was starting to rise, and fresco was not the thing. But multiplied by Michelangelo, and it created the greatest piece of art and architecture fusion of all time. So art is inside us. We need to find new ways of recycling or reassembling, and believing in the magnitude of the obsessive aspect of the human being, the repetitive madness that achieves excellence. So that was the inspiration that we're like, okay, let's do it. Then I was needed a hook. We all needed to find hooks to make tools. Again, reminding ourselves that the tools are already very powerful out there. So what's missing in the world of tools? So starting to look at what are the greatest tools of all time. The pencil. The pencil is endured so much because the magnificence of it is that it works straight away. You make a mark, it makes a mark. And guess what? That mark is you. It also has, you can look at your signature. Nobody can copy it. The marks you make are very personal, and they're made by this tool. And also the sensitivity, if you press hard, it makes a heavy mark. If you press soft, it makes a gentle mark. And within that range, you get again, a sketch from Michelangelo, of course multiplied by knowledge, but the tool is magnificent. It was till now, it's unsurpassed, the ultimate tool for sketching. If you look at drawings of artists throughout the history, from like ancient Fayum portraits to a sketch done by an animator today, you might not be able to know when it's done. The greatest musical instrument of all time, I believe, is the piano, because when it was commissioned by his name Bartolomeo Cristofori or so, and he was commissioned to do a keyboard that can play loud and soft. That's why the word piano. And basically, he invented the hammers that allowed the people to do that sort of expressiveness. You get a kid and they press it and it makes the sound straight away. It's the same sound that Chopin gets out of it, except he understands the chords and music theory, but it's another magnificent tool. There is no faster way of producing sound and sounds as well. Apparently, the piano can make the most amount of notes in the same time and sustain them, as well as very quick staccato kind of notes. And you can see it throughout history, from Mozart to Elton. And it is a timeless, sensitive tool. That is me and my boy. He's 6 now, but the beauty of this moment is, again, showing the sensitive tool example. A pen is democratic. The art, I'm an artist, he's a baby, and we both are using the same papers, the same pencils, making the same marks with the same courage. And again, this is the kind of tools that I was getting inspiration from. So the hook and the hooks for our tools in Dream, we started talking to each other, and we were starting to talk about the lacking of expressive user interface, expressive tools within the CG world. And we were starting to draw inspiration from expressive mediums around us. Attractive is a word I personally love to use a lot. I really like to watch people do their work. Like when you watch a caricature artist in the street, or a dancer, or Picasso, or a musician, the act of producing the art is a product in its own right. And that is not only sexy, that is educational, because it makes you learn without being sort of like force-fed. It's learned by inspiration. You look at Jimi Hendrix and you go, I want to be like that. It is a performance, an attractive connection to another human being. So any art form, any medium that is attractive gets a lot of points. And the ability to be live. Not a lot of CG tools were designed to be a live performance tool. A guitar is a live performance tool. You could design with it, record with it, but you can also play to people directly with it. So we were looking at again, liveness in tools and liveness in creativity, and what mediums do that. A puppeteer can tell you a story with the puppets live, so it's like live animation. So these were some of the early keywords. All amount to a performance, amount to what if we can do tools that can become a performance tool rather than a CG tool. That would be worth doing. And how do you do that? You need a perfect alignment of so many things to go right just to have a slight chance to pull an element of it off. Like when they invented the mouse, for example, was a great moment of hardware breakthrough, when the control or the input device stopped being commands written by sort of very, very machine style, turning into a point mentality. I want you, I want this color, I want to drop this menu and pick this choice. It suddenly became magic where you can just say you, this, that, this, that. And that instantly, a bit of hardware generated software. Straight away, as soon as there is a breakthrough in hardware, the software responds and starts creating a new language, like the handles that control the Bezier curves or the first generation of graphics. And then another breakthrough happens in hardware many years after, touchscreen and pressure-sensitive pens. And instantly you get the burst of gestures. Everybody now zooms like that, kids, grown-ups. So you swipe like that. You just, if something doesn't swipe like that, you go, what's wrong with it? The culture has new mannerisms because of these breakthroughs in hardware, and software changed again. As soon as the hardware changed, it brings another leap of software that goes together with it. So putting that all together, how did that translate to our story? The vision for the, and I'm focusing today on the art side of the tools. Dream is very big. It's got animation tools, music tools, software, logic tools. I'm focusing more on the art side of the tools. That was what I was more involved with. So the vision was, if we were to pull off these anecdotes of performance and expressive, attractive, then we must do a breakthrough in user interface philosophy. You must be able to change your decisions during the act, not after the act. Most software is about tweaking some decision. So you put a decision and then you change it, you move it, you manipulate. While a musician is doing it right now. It's not like I'm going to play a note and then I'm going to go and sort of change it. That doesn't make a performance. You have to be able to change gear life. And the metaphors, we needed a breakthrough in the engine level and the technology level as well. So first of all, what is our hardware breakthrough that is equivalent to the mouse and the touch screen? Well, it's the PlayStation. The PlayStation was our toy that has a lot of gadgets and things. Suddenly, this was invented for video games. All this family of things was invented to make people play and perform and act and possess characters and control vehicles and become superheroes or become the wind, you know. They are very cool control devices made for making people feel good. We wanted to take them and turn them into the next bit of the page. So that's our hardware. Our software was, and here are some demos. We embraced, for example, the move controllers in the PlayStation family, because that instantly makes you transfer your movements in the world. These are your cursors in the world, and we call them the imps, the kind of cute way of enticing people to create. You press a button, and you can grab the point in space and move around your scene like that. So you grab and you sort of pull yourself towards wherever you want to go. Now, these I'm going to just quickly run through a few of the ideas because they all will add up to show you how that makes attractive creation possible. For example, this gesture here, we call it the pinch gesture, equivalent to when you zoom in on the phone. You pinch your hand, you go in, and it becomes second nature after a while. And we have this last one is a fast flying operation. Again, we support the two moves because you have two hands. So you press a shortcut on this and you point on that. So this is your helper, or if you're left-handed, the other way around. And you have a main primary hand that does most of the operation, and the left hand is your helper. The kind of UI that I'm showing you samples of here, this is crazy important, this one. Basically, you grab an object in the world and you place it in somewhere else using your motor skills. The motor skills are very important things. Most of the CG software is designed to place something in A to B using gizmos, move in this axis and then this axis and then rotate and then move, rotate back, move, rotate, oh shit, back, no, oh fuck. I hate it. I hate my life. If you need to do this at every decision, these are 16 operations instead of that, So it is unacceptable. And we didn't accept it. Because we want to give you back those 16 decisions to do better decision with. And if by the time you do 500 of those, you're extremely tired as well. So the other operations, and we don't have time really to do all of the UI, but I really wanted, and I put these slides especially to show a few, like this one flips. You hold the object in your hand, do this gesture with the other hand, and it flips it vertically. You do it like that, it flips it horizontally. And if you watch our artists and designers and anybody using Dream, you just see magicians again, and you see stuff on the screen that corresponds to this operation. Even copying and pasting, we made it into an expressive operation where you can add multiple copies between copy A and copy B, and if you keep adding or subtracting, it adds. You can do like all sorts of spiral staircases and stuff like that, which anybody who does CG knows that they are a pain to do. And it keeps going. We have, for example, my point here is that our 3D tool is all based on shapes. Spheres and circles and rectangles and squares and things like that. Everybody knows shapes. You can it's a much more, you can cut with the shape, you can add with the shape. And I put together actually a more meaningful video that I probably skipped to. This is just an insight. We might go back to it later. Here is one video I put together combining some of these concepts together. So my second hand here, I can turn on and off the menu it's like my palette. I take a cube and check out what's going to happen now. I start putting the cube in the world by just stamping it, placing it. I want a bigger cube. I twist press a button and twist the hand. I get bigger cube, smaller cube. And that alone is therapeutic. And see, I'm moving the camera around second nature now because I just pinch, go close, go far, push myself out, grab myself in. I hit the controllers together and it turns into a cut. I can make a cut, use it to make windows, or even very sculptural-like indentations like that, all the way to minuscule little operations like that, which are technically very, very complex if you are using other software to go from the macro and the micro like that. You can cut a big sweep that goes across the structure, change back to the positive. I want initially I was using a uniform cube. I tap my two controllers together, and that allows me to stretch the operation. So many tools that are being summoned by magic. I do this, it turns into a cut. I do another thing, it turns into a stretch. I press a button here, it fixes it to only go in an upright position. So I'm slowly sort of showing how the potential of the cube and what we can do with it. I can do sort of modern architectural musings like that. I can even squash it. As soon as I squash my shape completely, it turns into an extrude. I didn't go to an extrude tool or anything. It's still the same cube. I just changed it into a squashed cube, and now that automatically tells the system you can extrude now. That's all quite, some people could say, it's not very visible. It's not like the pick up and play. If I didn't tell you that if you crush the rectangle, you can do that, you might never know. But that is the only way to avoid having the other style of tool, which you have the wall of functions that are presented to you. This philosophy only presents the operation when you want it. But it doesn't, you don't have to go and get it, you just summon it. And here I'm changing colors by another gesture. I just tap my controller to the other controller. So there's maybe 15 gestures or something along those lines that allow, a bit more, a bit less, that allow you to do undos and stretches and cut. Not 500, you know. So it takes a week or something to learn them. So instead of going to the color palette over and over, I made a cluster of colors, which I dragged into the what we call the mixer pot, and I put colors in it. Now, I'm moving now to another style of sculpting, which instead of placing object shape by shape, I'm scribbling with them now. We call it the smearing. That is amazing style of sculpture, but has no value whatsoever if it wasn't for the 3D input, for example, because it really benefits from the one-to-one mapping. So this is a marriage of hardware and software. Now, this is another way of blending. We have, I press one button, another button on the controller, and I control the amount in which that cube blends with the next cube. So you can see within a few minutes, a cube and a bunch of cuts and stuff turn from a very humble cube to a much more complex looking form. Again, just by changing my shape into a stretched ellipse and turning on this blend. And this blend is very nice in the cut because it also cuts in a soft way, almost similar to when you press a piece of clay with your thumb. And if I can make myself like really small and zoom in and just do very small indentations with that style as well. Another type of blending that we have is what we call the hard blend. Have you seen any UI, by the way? Not one single UI appearing. Every one of those concepts I'm narrating while it's happening in front of you is happening by shortcuts and gestures. This is what is needed to make the attractive creation possible, because all you're watching is the creation itself. You're only watching form manifesting before you, and you're not really watching a UI and then going, what does that do, what does that do? Sometimes I'm turning on a UI which appears like that, but only when I'm picking a color. So you look at it and you go, well, he's picking green, you know, it doesn't look like, what's he doing now? You know, it's nice whenever you see a user interface that it's self-explanatory. This here is a breakthrough that we did in Dream, which is allowing for impressionistic forms. So instead of just putting a sphere, I made it a painterly sphere. By, again, turning on another dial, I loosen it into what we call, these styles, we call them flex, and there is a bunch of them that you pick from. And it's very nice. Now I'm mixing here techniques. I'm using the soft blending with the loose together and placing that inside the structure. What we're looking at now is what we call a technique, where a mixture of functionalities has allowed a technique to happen, almost similar to when somebody does a certain sound in the guitar and you say, how do you do that? And they go, well, you press here and you do it lightly and then you mute in the sound. These are the kind of things that people share only in the visual side of things as well. So I took you from the very solid modeling, adding and cutting, all the way now, and I'm ending here on the very loose end of the spectrum, where I'm not using geometry anymore. I'm only using the flex, the paint marks. And I'm placing them in the world like as if I am painting with candy floss. We have a lot of different families. You have straight ones. You have more explosive ones, like you can see here. And they're very nice. You can use them in all sorts of ways. The literal ways is to use them to make like hair or foliage. But if you want, you can make a whole stylization using that stuff. And because it's three-dimensional, this volume is still a 3D object, which you can place and copy and manipulate exactly using the 3D analogy. So the nice thing is that it's not a filter that makes the thing look like it's oil paint. It's actually 3D modeling, but in a loose way. So here, that's an insight into a few of the tools. Now, one of the other things that we really wanted people to be able to do is change their mind. Like, I went to a restyle tool, picked another style that I didn't initially choose, and just scribbled on top of the splatty one with this dotty one. And then I want it in orange. I want to tint this whole thing. So you tint. But rather than tinting in a sort of Photoshop-y way, we wanted to tint in an artistic way. If I hold my brush over the object long, it puts more orange. If I put less, it puts less orange. That also allows sensitivity to happen. See the tonal range already in the green is very different than if it all just becomes sort of killer orange. Like that hand felt sensitivity goes back to that pencil shot. When you can press it hard, you get something different from when you press it soft. And that's what it looks like to create in Dream. You can, even when I was doing this video for the purpose of this, I was trying to sort of put some of my favorite concepts to show off, but I had nothing in mind structurally. That just was a byproduct of the exercise. Here I'm just wanting to end on a note where I find it very hard in CG tools to make anything that moves. Particle systems are renowned to be quite hard. Here I just elongated or stretched that cube that was there. I tinted it with the tinting tools, and I press a shortcut to tint the inner side of the cube so you can see the strokes. I restyle it with a different sort of style. And then I want to turn this into the sea. So I go to a bunch of brushes that I have, and one click, and it animates. And that's it. That's what it takes to animate. You just want a sea here. What's a sea? Blue and moving. And that's it. And if you want to put some the sun, you place an object like that. If you want to move the sun, you just move the sun. So move the sun. Yeah. So that is what it looks like to create in Dream. And I'm going to talk a little bit here tech-wise. And I got Simon, our magnificent engine programmer, to help me put this together. Now, this is a sculpture in Dream. This is so dense in the 3D modeling terms. In order to achieve that in a world of polygons, you simply have to have a very, very, very dense wireframe in order to allow you to have these miniature indentations as well as this very clean sort of spherical shape. Now, in order to do that, we have to have many concepts, and I will go through some of them. For example, this concept here is called the sign distance fields, is how our engine reads all the shapes. And it's the only way that you can have this kind of soft blend. Now, I only say these technical parts to draw that whole picture. It's not vision, okay, performance and expressive and attractive, UI design, gestures, but without the core technology that allows you to do these things, you really you don't have anything to stand on. For example, one of the breakthroughs that our engine guys did was that the way we send these models to the cloud, because in Dream it's a share forum where people make a level and they press save and it's on the cloud and someone else can open it up and download it straight away. The only reason that can happen is that we only upload the history of operations that have been done to create that head, not the actual head itself. That allows it to go very fast across the cloud. When we export, because we do some 3D testing as well, so when we export, we for one of these objects just for the purpose of 3D printing, the object, that head was 620 megabytes. In Dream, it's 0.8 megabytes. And it's only because of that and because of our very clever LOD system that lowers the resolution of the object, you can have that head and you can have so many copies of it in one scene. Usually, if you are in a normal 3D package and you have something as dense as that, you can have one or two, and then the program starts to cry. In Dream, you can do a model like that and then treat that model as a brush. And not only that, you can treat that whole thing as another brush. And you just can keep going. And the responsiveness is immediate. Nothing between you and your idea. Also, to make the sculpture more responsive, Simon wrote a whole system that puts all the muscle of the processing only around where your strokes are in order for them to allow, when I was showing you the smearing with the cube, these ideas cannot work if you do a smear and then it follows you. That just is goodbye to this idea. There is so many things that have to happen only to give you a result like that. Even the magic of our engine department allowed the painterly side of the engine to be an optimization as well. So when it's looser, it's also lower res as well. We had to paint, I put these slides to talk about the painterly engine, but I won't go into too much detail here because I want to say the achievement in the end is that. The achievement is that this artist, Maya, never did 3D before, and this is what a 3D world look like in her hands in Dream. She's now turned into one of the greatest artists in this generation. She is already an amazing artist, but like the 3D artist, I mean. That's one of John's. And look at the difference in style. Like John's sculptural style, entirely different than Maya, the artist before. And these are only our artists in Media Molecule. We were talking this morning about our community has grown so much, and every single one of them has their own unique styles. But you can see some of the metaphors that I was talking about. not only are attractive to watch, but they create attractive work that is very unique to every single person. So that is the holy grail, really, the complete circle. When hardware, software, individuality, the Michelangelo obsessive point, all these things come together to give us timeless art. And one can only imagine, this is like dream in the hands of architecture, dream in the hands of theater people, fine arts and graphic design, industrial design. These are all objects made in dream in the same ways that I was demoing to you in that video. The amount of people we're inviting to the party are really changing from the typical technical are superheroes and they're going to have a great time in dream. But now there is also another batch, another group that are invited as well. And one is very excited to see in the hands of conceptual pre-production designers. These are all made in dream environments that look like pre-production art and pre-production design, the art ofs, all that. And then beyond, who knows where dream will go in terms of imagery. And as I said, the talk today was focused more on the art, but I ended on a slide here to just almost open a window in some of the other systems in dream that allow you to create logic that creates a cart like this, or timelines that make incredible music and movie quality animation, but they need other talks and other people to do them. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. Any questions? I answered everything. There is no more. Okay? No? Cool. Well, thank you very much. We've got a question. Sorry.
Just kind of a big one, I guess, but not really. I wanted to just ask about, because one thing that everything that I've seen that's been made in dreams, some of the amazing stuff the community's done, the thing that always grabs my eyes is that wonderful materiality to a lot of the kind of oil painting, brushstroke kind of effect. And I wanted to just ask, as you said, the art director, I kind of wanted to ask how you arrived at that, how you kind of decided to go for that very painterly, materialistic kind of approach rather than just kind of the usual kind of flat materials that we're kind of used to.
Dude, I love the question. I love the question. This is the best question. No, because first of all, like when we were looking in the beginning of the CG and you look at the Avengers and all that, it's amazing stuff. Like, you know, the world is not looking for another bad version of these programs. And in order to do them, you need to, so we were looking for what is our 3D world made of, and how can we still make it decent? Because you don't, any medium for it to sing has to have nuances. It has to be able to go from one extreme to another. So we have our version of textures is what we call tight to loose. You have the very, we first made our first breakthrough was using voxels as opposed to models. Voxels allowed us to use solid primitives and cut solid primitives, and that was already breakthrough number one. It's like, cool. Using primitives to cut and add with is much neater, and it corresponds well to this input device thing. But there was a problem, like how do you do softer marks without having a particle system or gas or smoke? Or how do we do these things? How are we going to do smoke with spheres? You know? So we were searching, we needed something was missing. And the painterly philosophy, basically, I personally was working with Alex, our amazing engine programmer and one of the co-founders and technical directors. And he he wanted to try something out. We were sort of going, okay, we'll just do this voxel thing and then cover it up with a bunch of materials. And that was very depressing because I felt you can't get the nuances using that. So, and you know that slide with the pen when you have the heavy and the light, where is the light? You know what? So, and the problem is in rendering, anything transparent and alpha is very expensive. Like the computers hate that. So we were trying very hard to think about ways of do we cover the objects with, we create it all out of a ball of particles, what do we do? And then came that point cloud mentality, the experiments started happening. So I think that came from vision. That came like, the vision didn't let go, the technology followed, the UI followed after that, and then the techniques came as a result. And only because of that, I can say concept artists, for example, will find dream appealing. Because a sculptor may be fine without the painterly stuff, but a painter or someone who is making mood, and so, you can't only do it with light. You need something else. And we really wanted to create this softness in CG that has never been done, and that gives dream its edge and makes people think in an artistic way. I think most CG takes people in a realistic place. You know, and realism is good. You know, we all need to copy nature, but I think because of the choices we make, we almost unlock the stylization even more, make people think outside of the box. So that was a sort of almost the Pandora's box of stylization has opened up because of that. It's like giving people crayons, you know. Oh. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rich.